Welcome to Hot Flash's Menopause Monologues. I'm Helen Quigley, and this is a podcast made of inspiration and perspiration. Each episode features 2 monologues about menopause, and I ask the writer and my friend Helena Jevons about the story behind them. In Witch, an Essex woman accused of witchcraft awaits her fate in her cell in Chelmsford in 1582. Loosely based on the true story of midwife Ursula Kemp, this monologue speculates that hard-working middle-aged women of the time, if they lived that long, may have also suffered the mood swings and physical changes of menopause, no doubt contributing to the cliché of the tetchy old crone. One thing Ursula Kemp did not have to contend with was the school's Parent-Teacher Association's fundraising efforts, with its raffles, its strops, and its cake stalls. Or lack of cake stall in this case. So the PTA Queen, which I think has been one of your favourites because it's come up in conversation a lot, I think, again, based on personal experiences, and this is about a woman run ragged, like many people are when they have kids and are a member of parent-teacher associations. So I described this as losing your head when, oh wait, all around you seem to be doing the same. So tell me about that one.
So I have been on and off the PTFA of my children's school since my children started school, and they're now nearly finished primary school. But I decided to step up with a very good friend of mine 2 years ago to be chair of the PTFA. Mm-hmm. And it's such an interesting dynamic being part of a PTFA because you're separate to the school and you're a charity, but you're trying to do things within the school environment. The school is already very busy. People are very stretched. My parents are both teachers, so I understand how stretched teachers are and the challenges of doing things that aren't to do with liaising with the PTFA. But you've got this weird structure. And then I think PTFAs tend to attract a certain type of woman who likes to get things done and likes to do amazing things for the children, and were really trying to do something a bit different, which was really create a devolved structure where people ran individual projects and we weren't responsible for everything because we didn't want to be holding all that ourselves on top of trying to be, present for our families and things. And so we were really kind of shaking up the way the model had been done. We're trying to get many more people in doing less each and having a much more devolved network. And so that creates tension, right? Because change management, change in any environment always creates tension because it's not what people are used to. And it worked to a certain extent, but I had just had some changes to my HRT prescriptions around October, November last year, and I properly flounced off the PTFA as chair because of various issues that, had I not been so hormonal, I may well not have done such a flounce as I did. I'm not known for flouncing. It's not really my style, but I did flounce. I flounced. And it was actually as a result of that flounce and a result of me going, I've got to stop doing everything for everybody else and thinking I've got to do everything and thinking I've got to be in charge and thinking I've got to take these roles, that this has ended up happening instead. So that's interesting because I've done this for me, not for everybody.
So there's some value in creative flouncing.
Well, yes, there was, and I did sort of reclaim a bit of myself and for my own creative project by coming away from that. But then I lost the community, I lost the involvement, I lost the team, I lost other things. So there's always a balance, right, if you're choosing to pursue something for yourself versus being part of something. But yes, I don't want to, if you've ever been on a PTFA or you've ever been around a PTFA, if you've ever been tempted to get on a PTFA, you will know what this is about. And of course, because it's PTFA, it does involve a bake sale.
Right, let me set the scene for you. It's Monday morning. The children are barely out the door. I've got a lukewarm cup of tea in one hand, and my phone buzzes. It's Jennifer. Of course it's Jennifer. Year 5, twin boys, smug, gluten-free lifestyle Jennifer. She's got a brilliant idea for the upcoming school disco. She thinks we should ditch the DJ and have the kids, wait for it, make their own playlists. Now, normally I'd brush this off with a polite, oh, Jenny, that's a thought, and then quietly do what I was planning anyway. But today, Jennifer catches me in a moment. One of those moments. You know the ones? My face is on fire because my body has decided it's a furnace. My brain is playing hide and seek with every useful thought I've ever had. And all I can feel is this tidal wave of rage. So instead of brushing her off, I snap. Jennifer, I say. Do you really think a room full of 10-year-olds can agree on a playlist? They can't even agree on who's it in a game of tag. The last time I let children make decisions, we ended up with a cake stall featuring kale muffins and cucumber-flavoured cupcakes. Do you want to spend the disco mediating a fight over whether it's Taylor Swift or someone screaming into a microphone? No? Then leave the music to me. Dead silence on the other end of the line. I'm fairly certain she's blinking in shock. And honestly, so am I. I don't usually speak to parents like that. But then again, I don't usually feel like I'm being baked alive while my brain slowly melts like a chocolate fondant. And that's just the morning. By the afternoon, I'm back at school for a meeting with Mr. Finch, our ever-charming deputy head. He greets me with that condescending little smile of his. "Ah, Mrs. Clark," he said, "we were just discussing the spring fair. You know, we're thinking of scaling things back a bit this year. Less emphasis on the commercial aspects, more on community bonding. Perhaps fewer stalls?" Fewer stalls. Fewer stalls. Does this man not realise the PTA runs on stalls? The tombola, the bake sale, the face painting, these are the lifeblood of our fundraising efforts. Scaling back the spring fair is like telling the royal family to scale back the coronation. It's sacrilege. But instead of screaming, which I want to do, I take a deep breath and say, "Mr. Finch, we raise over £3,000 every year with those stalls. Do you have a plan to replace that income? No? Then perhaps you should leave the planning to those of us who know what we're doing." He's taken aback, of course. They always are when a woman dares to speak her mind. But I'm beyond caring. Let him think I'm rude. Let them all think it. I've spent years smiling sweetly while doing all the work, and I'm done. I've reached the stage of my life where I have no patience left for nonsense. Speaking of nonsense, let me tell you about the cake incident. The PTA bake sale is legendary. Every year, parents go all out trying to outdo each other with Victoria sponges, brownies and lemon drizzle cakes. It's like Bake Off without the Hollywood handshake. Except this year, I forgot the cakes. I, Mrs. PTA Queen, forgot the cakes. I showed up to the sale with a pristine tablecloth, donation jars, a clipboard, and no cakes. Not a single one. "Where are the cakes?" someone asked. And that's when it hit me. The cakes were still on my kitchen counter. I'd been so busy organising everyone else that I'd completely forgotten to organise me. Now, in the past, this would have been my worst nightmare. But you know what I did? I laughed. Yes, laughed. Hysterically, in fact. And then I grabbed the microphone and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the PTA bake sale, now featuring an imaginary cake competition. Picture your favourite cake and donate accordingly." And you know what? It worked. We raised £200 more than last year. I suppose there's a lesson in there somewhere. And let's not forget the fashion disasters. Last week, during the Year 6 Leavers Assembly, I stood up to give a speech and realised halfway through that I'd left the price tag on my blouse. It wasn't a small tag either. It was one of those bright yellow sales stickers with the price written in bold. So there I am, talking about the importance of community and education, and all anyone can focus on is the giant £9.99 stuck to my chest. But despite all of this, despite the brain fog, the hot flashes, and the moments of sheer chaos, I'm still running this PTA, organising the events, raising the funds and holding it all together. Women, juggling 1,000 things at once, even when our bodies and minds are conspiring against us. We forget the cakes, snap at Jennifer and sweat through meetings. But we keep going. So yes, I may be menopausal, and yes, I may occasionally fantasise about throwing my clipboard at someone's head. But I'm not giving up, because this is my PTA. And I'll be damned if I let a little thing like menopause take it away from me. Now, I need to finish baking this cake. Maybe this time I'll remember to take it with me.
Coming
towards the end of me choosing the monologues to use, you had said, I've written a story about a witch. One of the monologues is about a witch, and you called it a Salem story. And I thought, this is great. This works really well. And I thought, well, both of us have roots in Essex now. Me because I moved there, and you weren't born there, were you? You were born in Essex.
Yep.
And of course, Essex, very famous for the witch trials and the Witchfinder General. And I just thought, let's move this to Essex. And the poor actor who I initially asked to do it when it was called a Salem story is native Scottish. But when I mentioned it to you, you went, ooh, and immediately went off and did some research and changed the story, set the story not just in Essex, but about a specific witch.
Yeah, so this was I kind of get chills when I talk about it, actually. So I spent quite a lot of time 2 or 3 years ago sort of trying to understand the impact that the length of time that witch hunts went on for across, well, I was particularly interested in Europe, but also when I was writing to start with, I was trying to think of scenarios that were from different places around the world in different times. And so that's why I originally started it as a Salem witch story. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this was persecution of women that just went on for so long. And what were women really being persecuted for? They were being persecuted for being unconventional. So choosing not to get married, choosing not to get remarried after their husband died, choosing to do things that were outside societal norms, still the thing that people get punished for, not just women.
Yeah.
Knowing about herbs and healing and midwifery and doularing and
Possibly just having a pet.
all sorts of things, possibly having a pet toad or a pet cat or whatever. And the way that, because of the amount of fear that came with these wives, honestly, I'm just getting chills talking about it. You know, women were turned against women, were made to condemn other women, you know, and it was such persecution. So I wrote it as a Salem witch story. And I think actually what came to me when you asked me to change it to Essex, and I wrote it about a particular witch from a particular village. I'm not going to go into it because you can hear the story yourself. But from that one tiny Essex village, 14 women were tried for witchcraft in one village, one tiny little village. So it went from being a story about a witch as representative of all witches to a particular witch whose name was Ursula Kemp, who was hung in Chelmsford for witchcraft. It was a hard write once it became about an actual woman in an actual place that I lived in and a village that I knew. And because I think, as I said in the introductory episode, what I experience when I write these things is I feel like I'm stepping into the character. So with this one, because it became about an actual person, I felt much more of a sense of, this isn't a character I'm writing about as a personification of a type of person. This is an actual woman who actually died. And yet she's sort of unbowed, although that's not actually what happened. In actual fact, she did confess and she did drop other people in and all the things that we correct because I've changed it for theatrical purposes. And so this one is differently, I was really affected by voicing this on behalf of all the women who were involved in those witch hunts hundreds of years later when they have no voice.
You want to hear the truth. The truth. Not the lies they whisper in the assizes. Not the accusations shouted in the street, but the truth as I know it. Very well then. I am no witch. I have no familiars, no book of shadows, no pact with the devil. What I have are hands worn rough from years of labour, a back bent from soothing hundreds of births and midwifing hundreds more deaths, as well as healing everything in between, and a heart heavy with the weight of all I have lost. That is my truth. But they do not care for my truth. They care only for their fears and their need to lay blame. And so they look at me, a woman who speaks her mind, who does not bow easily, who feels more than she should, and they see a witch. It began with small things. A cow that went dry, a batch of bread that refused to rise, They said it was my fault, that I had cursed the milk and spoiled the yeast. I laughed at first. How could I not? It was ridiculous. But the laughter caught in my throat when I saw their faces. They weren't joking. They believed it. I began to hear whispers. The neighbour that was suddenly lame. The child that fell from its bed. These two were laid at my feet. She cursed them, they said. She muttered something under her breath, and now look at what has happened. As if I have the power to command sickness and a drought. As if I'm not struggling just like the rest of them. Do you know what it's like to be watched? To feel the weight of 100 eyes on you every time you step outside your door. To hear your name spoken in hushed tones, always followed by the same word. Witch. At first I tried to ignore it. But it's hard to ignore the way people step back when you pass, the way children are pulled away from you as if your touch might harm them. And then the trials began. They say they seek justice, but there is no justice here. They stand me before the congregation, demand I confess the sins I have not committed, and when I refuse, they call it proof of my guilt. You're angry, they say. Of course I'm angry. Who wouldn't be? You are erratic. Yes, I am erratic. My body betrays me in ways I cannot control. One moment I am calm, the next I am aflame. My skin burns, my head spins, and I am filled with a rage I cannot explain. But this is not witchcraft. This is life. This is age. This is the fire that comes to every woman when her body begins to change. They do not understand this, of course. How could they? They are men who believe that women are creatures of whim and mystery, who see our pain and call it hysteria. And so they can take my anger, my confusion, my pain, and they twist it into something dark and dangerous. She cursed me, one man says. She looked at me and my cow went dry. And what do I say to that? How do I defend myself against such nonsense? I cannot. And so they nod and they whisper and they decide my fate. The worst part is not the accusations, it's not the trial. It's not even the fear of what they might do to me. No. The worst part is the silence of those I called friends. Women who have sat at my table, eaten my bread, shared my laughter, and now they look away when I meet their eyes. They will not speak for me, because they know that to speak for me is to risk becoming me. So I stand alone, alone before the magistrate, alone before my congregation, alone in this cell as I wait to hear my fate. Alone against my son Thomas, who they forced to testify against me. My son, my 8-year-old son. They will ask me to confess again, telling me I will be treated fairly, and I will refuse again. And when they sentence me, because you know they will, I will walk to the gallows with my head held high. And I will say nothing, because my silence will speak louder than their accusations ever could. But if I could speak, I would tell them one thing. You will not silence us all. You may burn me, hang me, drown me, but you cannot destroy what I represent. I am every woman who has ever been told she is too much, too loud, too angry, too bold. I am every woman who has ever been punished for speaking the truth, for standing her ground, for refusing to conform. I am every woman who has ever scared weak men with wisdom, knowledge, and with love. And when I am gone, there will be others. Others who will rise up and speak the words they cannot hear from me. Others who will refuse to bow to your fear and ignorance. And one day you will look back on this time and see it for what it is. A tragedy, a travesty, a stain on your souls. I will not see that day. And so I will go to my death, not with fear, but with pride. I am not a witch. I am a woman. And that, it seems, is crime enough.
In this episode of Hot Flash's Menopause Monologues, the PTA Queen was performed by Laura Shavin, and Witch was performed by Kate Hevner. For more about events and the podcast, visit hotflashes.info, where you can also buy the book of the Menopause Monologues by Helena Jevons. If you are enjoying Hot Flashes, please like, follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And please do share online with your hot and sleep-deprived friends who might like it too. Hot Flashes is produced by me, Helen Quigley, and is a Soundliness production.